Welcome back to my channel. Ooh. That's so good. So in today's video, I'm going to be debunking a few myths about all-girls schools and also talking about some things that I noticed while attending one. This video is not meant to scare anybody away from an all-girls school. It's actually meant to just inform you. If you went to an all-girls school and you have any more myths that you want to debunk, or you have anything else that you noticed, please let me know in the comment section down below. I would like to see if we have similar experiences. The first myth is that there is much more drama in an all-girls setting compared to a co-ed setting. Now, I'm not trying to say that there's no drama at all in an all-girls boarding school, but in my personal experiences, I noticed that the drama was actually less. So there is still drama, and a lot of it could be centered around guys, but because we don't go to school with guys constantly and we don't see them as often, there wasn't really that much room for drama to be centered around that. And everybody knows that like the main source of teenage girl drama does come from boys, so it was not really there. The typical high school and middle school experience, like girls fighting over boys, you know, the crave for male attention, that just wasn't really like much of a thing at an all-girls school, or at least it wasn't as bad as a co-ed school. So I would definitely say that the drama is a lot less. The next myth is that everybody at an all-girls school is gay or lesbian or bi. I would say that this is definitely a myth. There are tons of straight people at all-girls schools. That doesn't mean that because you go to an all-girls school you're just gonna magically start liking girls. One thing I did notice though, and hopefully nobody gets offended at this, I noticed that a lot of people were just like experimenting. There were definitely girls that were gay or bi, but I noticed that there were a lot of girls that just like were only attracted to girls while being at an all-girls school. That's not really much of an issue. Actually, it's not an issue at all, because if you want to experiment, then you want to experiment. Like, there are people that are still trying to figure out their sexuality. The next myth is that at an all-girls school setting you don't get to see boys as much, and that's probably why so many girls are gay. Again, that is false. You do get to see boys at an all-girls school, and I'm going to be using like my experiences from 9th through 11th grade to talk about this, because obviously half of 11th grade was spent in quarantine for me, and then all of senior year I was not able to really interact with other schools. All the boarding schools in my area tended to be single-sex schools, so a couple times a month we would have something called mixers, and I actually talked about some of them in my recent video, which was my boarding school story times video. If you want a part 2, let me know in the comment section down below, because I would love to make that. I definitely have a lot more stories to talk about. But we would have mixers a couple times a month, basically just like school dances, but they weren't really fancy. Some of them could be fancy, but usually you would have to be invited to those ones, and I never was invited. Mixers were basically a time for like boys and girls to get together and like dance and talk. That wasn't even the only setting where you could see guys. We also would have like trips to the mall, trips to amusement parks, and that was another place that we could see boys. I knew a lot of people, even up until my senior year, that had boyfriends at boys' schools. I actually talked to quite a few boys during my boarding school career. A lot of these boys from all boys schools, they have a lot of maturing to do. The next myth that I have to debunk is that going to an all-girls boarding school is similar to like one big sleepover. That is definitely not true. My school specifically was very strict, and I know this is not the case for a lot of schools, because I know a lot of girls that went to different girls' schools and they did not have any of the crazy rules that my school did. My school improved over time, so we became less strict with each year that I was there. I would even dare to say that a lot of the policies were sexist. Definitely will say that as girls we were empowered to do anything that we wanted to do, and that's something that I really appreciated, because our school stressed the value of girls' education. But there were some really crazy rules that just made me raise an eyebrow. For example, the dress code my first few years was super strict. We couldn't wear ripped jeans at all, crop tops no. I know that I went to a Christian school, but honestly that was not usually the reasoning. It was usually in relation to boys, especially when we would go to mixers. We would have to get our outfit checked, and they would make us like bend over and do all of this stuff. It was really weird. I just felt like, if we're going to an all-girls school, do we really have to dress super proper? Also, we were heavily monitored at mixers with guys. It was actually crazy. I remember my first mixer, my freshman year, it was opening mixer. It was crazy. A lot of girls were dancing from my school, and like when I say dancing, I mean like twerking. I don't mean like simple ballroom dancing, really nice and elegant. and the teachers were always watching. It is usually my school that was doing it. Other girl schools, they could dance freely. I mean, obviously if you're dancing on a guy and it looks like y'all are doing sex, then that's probably not the best. But if you're just like throwing it back a little bit, I don't really see a problem, because a lot of the people were like 16, 17 years old. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. But my school had this thing called mixer jail, and they would literally throw you in mixer jail. You couldn't interact with your friends like a specific amount of time at the mixer. It was really humiliating because you would just stand to the side with an adult and everybody's like, well. Also, I have another story, and I can't believe this happened. I remember this one time my freshman year, and this never happened again, but it was very, very strange. These girls were dancing, you know, inappropriately at a mixer, and so the next week in announcements, Monday morning, the dean of students made them go to the front and dance on the male teachers. Basically, she was like, male teachers line up in the front, and then called up all the girls that had gotten in trouble for twerking at mixers or at the mixer, and she told them to go and dance on the male teachers. Obviously, the male teachers were like, please no, and the girls were like, no, we're not gonna do this. I saw that as a humiliation tactic, and I didn't really like it at all, and nobody else really did either. So I definitely believe that going to an all-girls school does not mean that sexism is gone. A lot of the teachers have internalized misogyny. There are a lot of immature teachers. I have this theory that being surrounded by teenage girls for too long turns you into a teenage girl. I definitely had teachers that were very mature, and actually I would say most of my teachers were mature. They didn't involve themselves with high school girl drama. They were just there to teach and inspire, educate. But there were a select few teachers that were just too interested in the lives of 14 through 18-year-old girls. These teachers would often stoke the fire and try to, you know, cause some drama within certain groups. Y'all are like 40 plus.
Piss me off for real. Why do you act like that?
Like what?
The way that you act. You don't see how you act, why people don't want to be around you?
Go watch The Real Housewives. Another thing I noticed was the lack of sisterhood, and honestly made me really sad. In my last video, I talked a lot about how politics kind of caused a divide, and the divide was pretty racial. I don't want to say that we were segregated, because it wasn't by force, it was more by choice. I would admit that a lot of my friends were black just because that's who I related to the most, but I just felt like there was a lack of sisterhood a lot of the time. People just gossiping about each other, leaving each other out, talking about how like, oh, we can't all be friends with everybody. And I know that we can't, but I just kind of feel like going to an all-girls school, you know, we are supposed to be empowering each other, we're supposed to be inspiring each other. That being said, there were a lot of tight female friendships. We would have like dinner conversations or even brunch conversations, and we would just like combine tables together and just talk for hours upon hours, and that was something that I really enjoyed. It was during these talks that we just talked about our lives, we talked about school drama, we talked about basically everything that was going on, and that really made me closer to a lot of my classmates and my peers. Last thing I noticed is that there is a girl for everything. So if you need to get your hair done, if you need to get your makeup done, if you need some fashion advice, there is somebody that will help you. We would often do each other's hair for like really low prices. I would get my knotless braids done by this girl at my school for like $40. Mind you, a lot of people are charging like $150, $200 for knotless braids, and I was getting them for $40. There was just so much talent at an all-girls school. So if you are not really well versed in beauty, style, there's always somebody for you at an all-girls school. That is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you are considering going to an all-girls school, whether it is a boarding school or a day school, let me know in the comment section down below. Please let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to DM me any questions about boarding school or an all-girls school environment, anything that you want to know that I didn't talk about specifically in this video. I want to start doing shout outs again. I was doing them like earlier this year, and then I just like randomly stopped, but I want to do it again because I want to thank everybody for commenting and watching my video. So if you made it this far into the video, drop an orange emoji, like the actual fruit, and you will be able to be shouted out in my next video, and I will see you guys in my next post.
Bye.